Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth edition of My Data is Mine Award. It has been a long day here at Web Summit, so remain seated, relax and enjoy the last panel of the day here at Corporate Innovation Summit stage. We will delve into the relationship between AI and data protection, and we will assign the My Data is Mine Award 2023, an award that was established by Euroconsumers in 2020 to support young researchers in the field of data protection. And also this year will be under the umbrella of the Consumer Empowerment Project, an initiative that is powered by Euroconsumers and Google to foster the dialogue between consumer organization, civil society, and industry. The chosen theme for this year, AI and data protection, couldn't be more relevant in the digital landscape. As AI algorithms needs a huge amount of data to produce more accurate predictions, the need for measures to secure the data, to save the data of the users is more and more relevant. And we will discuss about this with two distinguished professors here in Lisbon, and we will delve into the main topics of this complicated relationship. I would like to start with the role of regulation in the framework of supporting the development of AI. And I would like to start with Giovanni. Giovanni is a professor here at Catholic University in Lisbon. And how do you see this relation between the regulation and AI, especially if you consider that we have a masterpiece of regulation upcoming, the AI Act, how this can foster or create problems in the other way around on the development of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, that is really the question. I mean, we don't know when the AI Act will come into force now, will be adopted, because there is a lot of discussion now, but it's definitely what we are seeing in Europe, especially, in the discussion about data and AI nowadays, is that there is an increasing proliferation of measures, Now, I mean, a couple of years ago, even a little bit more, we were just talking about the GDPR as a point of reference, even when we were talking about automated decision making. And now we are increasingly talking about so many other pieces of legislation integrating the GDPR. And so the big challenge also for a consumer perspective is also to understand who you are when it comes to dealing with so many legislations talking to each other. I'm mentioning like the General Data Protection Regulation, the Artificial Intelligence Act, but also other pieces of the puzzle like the Data Governance Act, the Data Act, and also all the part on content, mentioning the Digital Services Act. So the question about data and AI nowadays is not just connected to GDPR, and this proliferation requires a lot of coordination even when it comes to the enforcement.
Thanks, Giovanni. And Graça, we witnessed the intervention of many data protection authorities in the recent months at European level. Also, the European Data Protection Board established a working group on this specific theme. What are the main outcomes of this intervention of the data protection authorities?
I would say that DPAs have been very much focused when it comes to AI in two main topics. One is transparency, and how do we ensure that the data subject or the consumer is being correctly informed. This is one thing, and it's a problem. And the other thing is related to the legal ground that we can use to support AI system. These have been two pressing topics, but one positive thing that I would like to stress regarding the AI Act is that, for example, there has been, regarding the high-risk AI systems, a significant number of them have already been assessed by DPAs or considered in case law from different courts at the EU level. So I find it positive that there has been a previous dialogue between the EU legislator and data protection authorities or courts when applying data protection law.
And you are also a member of the South Data Governance Chair. From the data governance perspective, how much is important for the consumers, for the users, a certain kind of transparency or interpretability of the AI algorithms?
The main point is that without data, there is no AI. There are no AI systems without data. So data is very, very much important. And when we speak about data at EU level, we are very much used to thinking about the GDPR only. But there are other laws, and not only the AI Act, for example, the Data Governance Act, and we have a proposal for the Data Act that will be very, very important for the development of AI systems here in Europe. But coming to your question again, from a perspective of a company that wants to have an AI project and innovate in an AI system or area, it's very important to have their data, their corporate data, structured with good quality, and it's important to have a good data governance. And at least here in Portugal, that will be the main challenge that a lot of companies, especially small and medium ones, will face if they want to innovate with AI.
Thanks. So we heard loud and clear that transparency is one of the key points in the relationship between AI and data protection. And Giovanni, you work in constitutional law, human rights, and also data protection, of course. If we consider the GDPR, is it enough now to guarantee this kind of transparency for the users or consumers, or do you think that we need further rules to guarantee this for the users?
Yeah, that is actually one of the other fundamental questions when we speak about AI and data, generally speaking. And that is actually was connected also to what Graça was saying, that now we are increasingly seeing like more rules connected to data. And also, I mean, when it comes to transparency, even in the GDPR, in the traditional way, sometimes it's very hard to explain even. There has been a lot of debate about the right to explanation in these years, but now the attention is moving very much to the AI Act. It's really looking more like a way to amend also the GDPR, to complement the GDPR, when the GDPR does not say much about how to deal with the AI problems, with the AI challenges. And so this is a question of our transparency now is turning more to a question of making data subject or users more, even consumers, generally speaking, understanding the logic of what's behind. So basically, how the data process, what could be potential inputs. So the probabilistic logic is also expanding to the logic of transparency as well, because of course the problem is actually, especially in automated decision making, is about the outcome.
And you know that I entered the scene with this beautiful object that was not created by an artificial intelligence, but my dear friend Luca Di Garbo here is in the audience. So now, before continuing our journey, I would like to announce and introduce to the stage the winner of My Data is Mine Award 2023. So please welcome on stage and tribute a big applause to Christina Varytimidou. I hope she's here.
Yeah.
She's here.
Here she is.
I saw the chair. Oh, Christina. Oh, this is your prize for this year, the award. And another big applause for Christina for winning the My Data is Mine Award 2023. Please take a seat.
Thank you so much for the honor.
And I mean, you submitted a paper whose title was pretty self-explanatory because it was GDPR Stress-test by AI toward a user-centric data protection approach. And in your paper, I would like to quote is, almost every key principle set out under Article 5 of the GDPR is challenged by AI, which I totally agree with. So my question is, how can we balance this challenge now? And you stress also in your paper the role of legitimate interest as a potential data lawful basis for data processing. So I would like also to deep dive a little bit more in this concept of your paper.
Yeah, sure. So I will try to first briefly explain a little bit my paper. So, of course, I start by identifying some data protection issues raised by AI, and of course, quite quickly, I came out with the conclusion that almost every key GDPR principle is being challenged by AI. Now, I don't think that AI is the root of the problem. However, I do think that it acts as a magnifying glass, and whenever there's a great challenge, there's always a great opportunity for improvement. So what I basically found out is that humans are uniquely positioned when it comes to AI, and it's basically us who have control over what data sets we will use. So if it's really in our fate and control of whether we will have data privacy-friendly AI models or not. And of course, legitimate interest can play a pivotal role in this. I believe that is a flexible and broad term, but it's very, very easy to adapt in the AI era. Of course, it is a vehicle for innovation, but the GDPR has managed to put some brakes in it because it requires a three-step test assessment. So not all AI systems right now will be able to pass this test. But I do think that time will tell whether with case law or guidelines from supervisory authorities, these brakes will need to be adjusted to be fine-tuned with the AI era. So yes, I believe they can play a pivotal role on this.
Thanks, Christina. And your paper is perfectly in line with the philosophy behind My Data is Mine. My Data is Mine was initially a declaration that started in 2017. It was started by the organization in the Euro Consumers Group. And at that time, it was a declaration based on the fact that data was not only a fundamental right, but also an economic asset, and should be treated as such. 5 years, 6 years later, I see that the reality of the market is exactly in that direction. So we need a user-centric approach, as Christina highlighted in his paper. But my question for first Giovanni and then Graça is how can involve the consumers in managing the parameters, to setting the parameters, to have to be fully in control of their data. Because I think that this is a really cultural need and also a challenge.
I mean, there are different ways to answer this question, because the way in which consumers, of course, can impact, first of all, it's about when sometimes also legislation or the law allows you to access remedies to say something, you know, or participation. And there are different ways. Of course, you can rely also on civil society, bring your voice in order to be heard, you know, from different communities, not only in policy, but also with other communities shaping AI. That's an important point that sometimes we tend to forget, also the importance of civil society in this space, especially increasingly with AI. But also when it comes to remedies and regulation, it's also important that if we want also to ensure these actually rights, particularly data rights, it's also important that the consumer has the possibility to say something, to knock the door of the data protection authorities or whoever authorities will be competent, especially for AI, to say if there is a remedy. This has been also the discussion in Europe around the AI Act about the possibility, the importance to have remedies even in the AI Act, because the first idea of the Commission was not really focused on that, and now it's changing also through the European Parliament. So that is actually important also because, last line, consumers nowadays are not only very much just consumers, they are called data subjects, they are called consumers, they are called users, they are called content creators, they are many things. But still they are humans, their data process as users, as consumers, are citizens at the end. And that's why it's important to think about remedies in the digital age.
That's absolutely great. And I mean, for example, the new payoff of our consumers is empowering people to improve the market. Because only if we empower the consumer, we really improve the market at the end. And how can we do this? With which kind of means we can do it? For example, for as a consumer empowerment project, we are launching next year initiatives for kids called Consumer Leadership Academy Kids, because I think that it's important even for kids to better understand this beautiful world of technology, but also having the tools to interpret and to be an empowered consumers till the very beginning. And coming to Graça, considering also your involvement as a co-CEO of Futura and your teaching experience, what do you think are the most effective strategies to achieve this goal?
So the topic of digital literacy overall, which is connected with the capacity, how can we empower consumers and data subjects, has been an important topic for me, not only in academia, but also in my professional work outside academia. And I've recently had the experience of writing a book for children in partnership with a designer. And the topic of the book, which will be published soon, is exactly that. I try to explain to children with 7 years old what what are personal data and how important personal data are for the children. So I think that the most important thing is to explain children, starting with 5, 6, 7 years old, what are the risks of the digital overall. And I think that explaining the importance of personal data and how can they control personal data, it's important. On the other side, I also faced a huge challenge in trying to simplify the language of data protection law and trying to simplify the language of all these regulations that we have nowadays at EU level is very, very, very challenging for children, of course, but also from a corporate perspective. We need to train people that work in companies, people that do other stuff. They have millions of other stuff to do, and they also need to understand the kind of behaviors that they need to have to ensure that the company will not be attacked, that the client is protected from a data protection law perspective. And I find an interesting perspective from the so-called learning, which is trying to find ways that are engaging, that are entertaining, in order to make the message, the complexity of the laws, reach a normal person, let's say it like that.
Thank you. As the time is running out, before our last point, I would like to mention one point which is really important to me. We have a really good collaboration here in Portugal and Lisbon with Nova School of Law. So this year we established also a special mention for students coming and researchers coming from Nova School of Law. And we really appreciate the work of one of these students, researchers, who is Amanda Costa-Novais. I hope my pronunciation was right, that submitted a beautiful paper on the intersection between AI, GDPR, and intellectual property. So I could ask you to tribute also an applause to Amanda. I don't know if Amanda is here somewhere. Oh, she's there. Amazing paper. You're great. And we have just 1 minute left. So basically my last question would be kind of yes or no. So we mentioned the Artificial Intelligence Act. There is one point that I think was a missed option. So I anticipate my vision on this, but I would like to hear from you. The missed option was not to include a specific legal basis for data processing or training of artificial intelligence systems. So do you think that GDPR will be enough, will survive at the artificial intelligence challenge, or do you think that there will need further fine-tuning of the regulation even after the Artificial Intelligence Act? So I would like to ask before Christina.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that the GDPR has to survive after the AI Act, because otherwise the fundamental right to data protection will become obsolete. However, I don't think that we really needed a completely new legal basis when it comes to data processing activities within the AI Act. I think that this would create legal patchwork and further fragmentation. That's the last thing we actually need in Europe, more legal uncertainty.
Giovanni.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the GDPR will really be complemented by other pieces of legislation. So will still be there, and probably, also other legislation helps a lot to complement, and also judicial interpretation, also the authorities at the member states level will also help to understand more what's going on. Yep.
I agree, and the GDPR will survive, and the AI Act is a very good complement to the GDPR.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us, and enjoy the Web Summit.